Do you feel stuck in your business idea? Like you've been talking about starting that new company, starting that new career, but you just feel like you can't move forward? Well, in today's episode, I have my good friend, Tiffany Mahon. She is a serial entrepreneur, author, and minister. Through God's word, she learned how to overcome the trauma and pain she experienced to walk into her purpose.
They're like, oh, you were divorced. You went to jail. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what you sorry for? I'm like, I am grateful that God saved me over and over again. So there's no reason to tell me sorry because he's given me the purpose now to now pour into someone who may be going through something similar.
If you've been struggling with fear and you've been feeling stuck, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Faithustle podcast. I am so excited for today's conversation. If you don't know me, my name is Makwenda. I'm your host. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years, and I get the joy through this show to bring on entrepreneurs and content creators, influencers, business owners, investors, people who are crushing it in the marketplace, but have done it God's way. They've done it through biblical principles, through a biblical worldview and perspective, and they've built their life on Jesus, on the way of Jesus. And so I am so excited for this conversation because this woman of God right here, I personally admire. I have a very clear rule. I don't bring anyone on the show that I don't personally admire. It's an integrity thing. And we sat down together, and a little bit ago, I got to hear her story, which is just, that alone will be like a 2-hour conversation in of itself. But she is a serial entrepreneur, has written books, has had multiple companies, is a real estate developer, is doing so much in the community, has her own nonprofit. But more importantly, she loves Jesus. She has a heart of ministry and a passion to help people fulfill the purpose in their life and to squeeze the life out of their capacity. And so if you've been making excuses or been on the fence or just honestly not knowing how much you have in you, this is going to challenge you to grow. We're all going to grow together. So I have my friend with me, Tiffany.
I'm super excited. You just said something. First, I'm honored to be here.
Yeah.
To be able to have this platform where we can challenge people.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand walking with God is a challenge.
Oh, come on.
People
Yes,
are praying for a woman of God and they're praying for a man of God, but that's going to come with a challenge,
Yes,
just like
it is.
business.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for the challenging conversations that we're going to have today to just be able to unleash some shackles that could be binding people up from receiving the fullness that God has for them. So I'm honored and grateful to be here.
Tiffany, you like a horse out of Kentucky Derby. You let the gate. I was like, all right, let's go. I'm like, hey, I'm here for it. No, you're 1,000% right. I think it's going to be challenging and equipping, and obviously I don't want to waste any time. I want to get right into it. But again, I just want to thank you for being on and just. I think we actually got introduced through Lydia.
Yeah,
funny enough.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lydia Turner.
Shout out to Lydia.
And who's amazing. Her episode was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It helped so many people. But she was like, listen, if you want me on, you are going to love Tiffany. And I was like, checking out your stuff. And like, again, there's just, I can't explain it. There's just with some people like, oh, like they get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're on the same page. And so again, I kind of alluded to your productivity and all the things. And I'm just going to try to list all the stuff.
Yeah.
Nonprofit, Modest Muse. Mm-hmm. You're doing stuff in the community. You're a VP of strategy at Vibe Real Estate, real estate development, commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. You have a brand, I think a merch line, Love Over Lust. Mm-hmm. Multiple author. Mm-hmm. You got a women's ministry. You had a juice bar at one time. I don't know if you have enough time in the day. I feel like you could really like squeeze more out of your days. Yeah. But you were telling me even on the way here, you're like, I was straightening my hair. I was on a prayer call. Someone asked and they're like, hey, I have a situation right now. I'm doing business stuff. I'm like, man, you know what? She is intentional with her time. And you said something before we started.
Yeah.
You said intentional building.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I want to get into, because part of this I know is related to your testimony of what drives you in this way. But what has driven you to be like, Lord, you've given me this life. I'm going to squeeze the life out of every bit I can of what you've given me. Like, what drives that?
Trial and tribulation, suffering. You know, I think people who normally don't suffer don't understand the purpose in their life, because they don't have to ever go to a depth to understand it. You know, sometimes when people ask about my prayer, you know, why are you so powerful in praying? I'm like, because that's all I had at one time. And when you can understand what it's like to have nothing but God, you realize that that prayer, the way that you walk, your intentionality, everything that you do is fully submitted and surrendered into his will, because you've seen how good he is. It's the goodness of God that makes me be so intentional in the building, and an understanding of self. That goes right into identity. You know, I think we start there, knowing who I am. And I think I told someone that the other day. I was like, you know, someone else's confidence and what they think about themselves and their own traumas does not define my confidence. My confidence is rooted in who God created me to be.
Amen.
So if God called me to be a servant, and he's called me to do multiple things. You know, a Proverbs 31 woman is not just doing one thing.
That's
she's
true.
tending the yard. She's taking care of the home.
Yeah,
she's doing a lot of different things.
She's a hard worker.
Yeah. And my vision when I was growing in my faith was, Lord, I want to be a Proverbs 31 woman. I said, align my lifestyle to be that. He looked at me and he said, it seems cute. It seems like just being a wife, right? And then that's a whole different level, because when you go into defining a wife, you realize all the pieces that's needed to fully fulfill who it is that God's calling you to be, and how intentional those pieces are to making up the bigger picture. Intentionality, it's key.
Okay, you got me on the first line.
Yeah.
So I ain't gonna squeeze past that. we ain't just gonna race past. All of that was so good.
Yeah.
When you said, if you don't understand suffering, it's hard for you to recognize purpose. I actually, funny, literally 2 days ago, conversation, good friend of mine, Jason. We had a phone call, and I was telling him, it's interesting, like even in the beginning, we were talking about like kind of relationships and different things like that. It's like, it's fascinating. Like, God tells Adam, it's not good for you to be alone, right? He's like, oh, I didn't even know that was a problem. Okay, like, so now God puts this desire in him for companionship. He doesn't answer it right away. He makes him wait. He's like, all right, cool, name the animals. Like, it's not good for you to be alone. You should really have someone. All right, while you're waiting, name the animals. So he gives him a desire, prolongs it, makes it worse. But then when he puts him to sleep out of his rib, right?
Yeah.
Forms Eve.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Adam, I think it's the first time in scripture where there's like poetry we see, like Adam breaks into song almost of like bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He's like, whoa, man. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like he's mesmerized. I was telling him, I was like, man, I almost feel like it's hard for you to the waiting process, and this is not a dating show, but like just I'm going somewhere.
This is so ironic, because this morning when I was getting ready, I said I need us to talk about relationships.
Oh snap! Okay,
this is super. Why? Because I've had a lot of married couples even come to me. I just married a couple weeks ago, and I think
I saw that. Yeah.
And you know, they've been coming for counseling. I'm like, I told my friend earlier, I was like, little old me. They said, no, big you. Remember, God called you, but you married God first. And because you married God, that's the reason why you have the wisdom to understand relationships. Because when we're speaking about business, which we're going to be covering, we have to understand partnership.
It's true.
And how we're supposed to function as a body.
It's true.
Which starts with understanding relationships.
Absolutely.
Because the thing that is causing separation is the enemy is against unity right now. If we can come together and be unified, we can build the kingdom in the way that God has ordained it to be built.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're going against each other.
Yeah.
And if I can teach women how to work with men and men how to work with women, and to be humbled and submitted to God's purpose and his will, where we don't allow lustful desires and things to get in between of the mandate and the assignment that God has given us. Because that was the first thing when you said that waiting season, you know, whenever he was naming all the animals, that was his assignment.
Absolutely.
While God was preparing everything else behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
So how do we handle our assignments? How do we manage the relationships and the assignments that God gives us?
Ooh, You talking good, Tiff. You talking good. You're 100% right. And I mean, all of it comes down to that. And what I was wanting to get to was that waiting season. God gives him an assignment, name the animals.
Yeah.
He sees Eve. If he just got Eve right off the bat, I don't think he fully appreciates and breaks into song. And I think to your point of suffering, you have to understand suffering a lot of times to even have an appreciation for purpose. I was like, I think a lot of times, like, you have to, if you have never experienced sorrow, you don't have a context for joy. It's like, I will not appreciate it when it comes because I've never endured anything to be like, oh no, that's joy. And I waited for the, and it's like, you hold it more preciously. You hold it more with a reverence. Like I have friends that, dear friends that, they've believed God for a baby and maybe they struggle with infertility. And then when they get their child, it's like, man, like, you think I'm going to like waste this time?
Yeah.
I am taking full advantage of every single second with my child because this is once a prayer that I held in my heart. And now it's like here, you know what I mean? And not that you don't have your moments or whatever like that, but I just think that's a really cool correlation of what you said of, I think a lot of times we are not fully intentional with our lives. And I think we don't have the proper perspective or context. Again, if you've never been through anything of like, hold up, this life is a gift. Like this moments I have, this is precious.
And I think with suffering, sometimes you have to be intentional with asking for it. And if we want to be Christ-like, you have to understand the suffering that Christ went through. But what type of prayer? And I actually prayed this prayer last week. I said, God, break me. I said, break me so that you can fill every crevice of me. And I was like, and I'm okay with the suffering because I saw what you did on that cross and how you were resurrected. And I'm believing the same thing for my life. If you break me, you will bring me back alive. And the spirit within me will be even stronger than how I was before. So before your suffering and who you are after your suffering is two different people. And if you're someone who's hungry for a new level of spiritual maturity or spiritual growth right now, you must ask God, show me how to suffer. And to give me joy in the suffering. What does it look like to be fruitful even while being pruned?
You talking Bible. You talking Bible. No, it's so, I mean, so many times in the New Testament it talks about we whether it's Peter or Paul, like they would talk about suffering as a joy. And they were like suffering. Like getting killed, suffering. Like getting stoned. But they're like, man, the fact that actually, like, Acts was written by Luke. And Luke, like, he's a doctor, so he's very intentional with his words. How he painted the picture of Paul towards his death. He in the language, he mirrors Jesus's road to the cross, and in so many different facets, it's beautiful. And there's almost this correlation of like, I get to suffer with him so that I can resurrect with him. It's like everybody wants a resurrection, nobody wants a death, and it's like
you gotta die to come alive.
Okay.
I mean, let's be honest. You gotta die to come alive. And this is a continuing journey, right? This is not just a one-all, I die today and then I'm alive for the rest of my life. No. This is dying to ourselves, to the world, to all the things that we're going up against every day. We must die daily. Like, we have to die to our will, to fully take on God's will. And I think people really need to understand that posture. Because it's a posture.
Yes, it is.
It's a posture of full surrenderance. That I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the sake of the kingdom. But people aren't there because I always tell people that we live in this world of it's all about me. You go to church for you. You don't go to church to disciple others or to get the tools and resources to go out and preach the gospel. You go to church to just give you a little bit of motivational speech for you to get through the week, but you don't understand the assignment of going out and making more disciples. So it's so deep, but what I had to find was my joy in the suffering. And then what I say is I don't believe in bad days. Why? Because bad days are character building days.
This is a character building day.
Yeah, I've never had a bad day in my life. Why? Because when you understand the promises on your life, that he has plans to prosper you and not to harm you, every single thing that you do should be in alignment to his process and his promise to know that if I die today, he's going to resurrect me tomorrow. And as long as I stay rooted and I stay firm to my foundation, I will never not be resurrected.
I feel like I need an organ. My gosh. My goodness. No, that's character building days.
Character building days.
It's like, so when you get stuck in traffic, you got a flat, ran out of gas. Oh, this is a great character building day.
What's your perseverance like? What's your patience like? How is your grace? How is your mercy? How's your compassion with yourself? Are you actually loving yourself enough to be patient and endure long suffering?
Yeah.
Or do you just think this is all about you so that you think blowing up is going to be the result? Yeah. No, because this is a thing people are watching at all times.
Yeah.
So they're looking at how you handle tough situations. And the way that you handle tough situations is exactly how God will be glorified through the experience.
Yeah.
So you could either turn someone to God by the way that you handle hard things, or you can turn someone away. And that's when I realized that the way that I handled hard things mattered. That's why you don't talk too soon about things that you're still overcoming. You don't share the story until you overcame.
That's good. That's good.
Because you got to speak from a place of deliverance.
Yeah. And you've been through some stuff. When you were telling me I'm just gonna give highlights, and I know I am not going to even touch all of it. You were like, man, you were a former NFL wife.
Yeah.
You are a survivor of domestic violence.
Yeah.
Been to jail 3 times. I was like, you were hitting it, and I'll say this is the beauty of the gospel. I would have not believed you at all. Like I'm like, who, you? Like that's what Christ does. Where like when it says like the old is gone, new is come, you take on a new nature. Is like I would have, and obviously that's part of what has shaped you.
Yeah,
I would have never seen it of the joy that you carry, the confidence you walk in, the courage that you have. I could have never seen it. Like that's just the beauty of what Christ does. But I when she talks about suffer, like no, like she knows what it means. Do you ever feel as a Christian entrepreneur that you're alone? That in a world full of people who are building their businesses off of greed and self-help, you're by yourself on an island trying to build your business God's way. Well, I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. When I started my podcast over a year ago, I started with a mission of, could I find like-minded people who were crushing it in business, but doing it God's way? And over 50 episodes later, I've interviewed dozens of millionaires and investors and serial entrepreneurs who have all built their business God's way. And it gave me hope that there is a community of like-minded people who want to build a different way. And I realized we need more than just a podcast that can give information. We need a community that can bring transformation to our lives, to our businesses, so that we can actually build our businesses the way God designed them to be built. And that's why we launched our own online school community called the Faithustle Network. The Faithustle Network is an online space where we can learn to grow our businesses God's way together. You'll get the opportunity to learn from Christian multimillionaires, business owners, and investors, to be a part of our entrepreneur-focused Bible studies and prayer calls where we pray for each other's businesses, and receive exclusive discounts and first access to all Faith Hustle events and resources. Not to mention, you get to be a part of a growing community of hundreds of Christian business owners and content creators, all looking to build their business God's way. If this describes you, join the Faith Hustle Network today. I can't wait to see how God grows you and your business, and I hope you'll join us inside the Faith Hustle Network. I guess walk me through, okay, so these different ventures again.
Yeah.
You have several different things as I listed from the top.
Yeah.
What's your, after having overcome all that stuff, what's your mindset going into each day, each week as you're, okay, you got all these different things that you're weighing that you have as far as responsibilities. Like how, not just how are you handling it, but what's your mindset through it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have victory. I am not a victim to any of my past traumas, my trials, my tribulations, the things that are going to come against me. And when I realize that we are in a spiritual battle, we're not fighting the people around us, but we're fighting the spirits within the people, then you realize that as long as you just keep persevering and loving the way that Christ loves the church, you can do anything. But what I had to do was free myself from the bondage of victim mentalities. Because someone can say here, and people do it all the time. They're like, "Oh, you were divorced. You went to jail. I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "What you sorry for?" I'm like, "I'm not even sorry." I'm like, "I am grateful that God saved me over and over again. So there's no reason to tell me sorry because he's given me the purpose now to now pour into someone who may be going through something similar." I had to find my why in the suffering. And that's what gets me going every day. It's a posture. It's a mindset. It's a willing to less of me and more of God.
Yeah.
This battle has nothing to do with me.
So good.
So my mindset, I understand the battle is in the mind. If the enemy can take me out in my mind first,
he's got you.
That's where he's going to get me.
Absolutely.
So really protecting and covering my mind daily is the first thing that I do to start my day. I can't go without it. When they say get your daily bread, I'm not playing with that.
Yeah.
And what that looks like is not just listening to a podcast really quick and getting a prayer really quick and that's it. No, you have to have a deepened reverence for God because to whom much is given, much is required. So if you are called to do a lot, you must be postured to be able to handle a lot, which means that you need to handle opening up your word daily and studying it, not just reading it. And studying each word of the text so that it can now come alive in your life. It starts to become this armor that you don't even realize that you're putting on as you read the promises and you start to walk in the confidence of who God created you to be. It took the word of God for me to define who I was. It wasn't someone telling me, "Oh, Tiff, you're this and that," because I'm telling you, when people would tell me who I was, I wouldn't listen. It wasn't until God showed me who I was. And then that's when I was able to get in alignment with that. So it's a day-to-day walk of knowing that we are walking in victory. We are not victims to the people and the things that hurt us. And then Romans 8:28 is one of my favorite scriptures because he works it all out.
Yes, he does.
All of it.
Yes, he does.
Those who are being sexually abused right now, those who may be going through molestation, I don't know who that could be touching in this situation, those who may be going through domestic abuse, abandonment, whatever that may be, you are not a victim. You have victory because it's not over yet. And like I said, don't speak about it until you overcome, but you will speak about it because you will overcome.
Oof, man.
That's a promise.
That is a promise.
I stand on my promises with God.
Come on, somebody, as you should. Man, I believe in Selah moments and just letting it sit. Because I think this is going to help free some people. Because I think, I have so much empathy because I've been there where we can make excuses of, I can't start this business. I can't walk out in faith and do this. I can't operate in my calling because of what I've been through or this or that. And I have empathy for it because they're real things. Yeah. However, I think it's a intentional perspective shift, as you said, to Christine Kane, who I love. Hey, one day I'm declaring by faith. What'd you say?
You're in alignment with everything in my life right now.
That's wild.
Okay. No, keep going.
No, Chris Kane, I'm praying by faith. We're going to have her on the show one day. But she came to my church recently and she spoke. She said this insane lie. Because her story is wild. I mean, I know. She was also a survivor of abuse for I think the first 12 or 16 years in her life. And I think she's in her late 50s. And she made this statement. She said, respectfully, I am not going to let what the first 16 years of abuse happened rob me of the last 40 where it didn't. And it was like, why would I let those years rob me of these years where that has not, like, I've been able to overcome and be victorious, I'm not going to let it rob me. And it was just such a, it was like, oh, hold up. Like, square up. Like, you know what I mean? And like, it's so, and we're not talking about like not getting to the root, not getting healing. Like, obviously, please get counseling, therapy, all that stuff. Don't hear what we're not saying. Yeah. But those things replay in your mind, and they keep your feet from moving. One of the things I wanted to get into this, I just kept thinking of that passage where he's a lamp unto my feet, a light into my path. And I had this thought of like all the references for him being a light is almost in reference of action. So it's like, I will see more as I keep walking. I'm not going to see the full thing. I'm going to see enough to take another step. But a lot of times we will get stagnant because we're like, man, I can't take another step. Like I have, whether it's insecurities, fears, worries, the replays of, you know, hey, I'm a victim to this, or this happened to me. Yeah. And that just stirred me of, man, you know what? Like, I could complain about a lot of stuff. My mom, she went to heaven when I was 8 years old. That's why I got her tattooed on my arm, right? Like, I could live there. Yeah, yeah. Or I can say, listen, I went through that. It's not fair, but hey, listen, nothing is fair. This is not, I'm not promised fair. I'm promised that he's going to be with me, right? And so, Lord, how can I steward this moment that I have now to bring you glory? Yeah. Right? Obviously to make them proud, but more than anything, it's really to glorify you. Yeah. But I'd love for you to touch on that. I don't know. I feel
you gave me three things just now that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
Just based
touch
off
on all
that.
of them.
Well, first and foremost, Christine Kane, I just want to give all props and power
Beast.
to her as a woman. Because of her and her mission, that's why I'm so passionate to want to jump out of helicopters and save children from the cartel, and I will accomplish that. So, Christine, if you're hearing this message right now, put me on your team.
Let's go.
I'm ready to jump out the helicopters.
Team 6 over here. I'm
ready.
Yeah.
You know, but another part too that I really took in was yesterday I was telling a friend that, you know, going through relational stuff, and they were like, I wasted so many emotions and invested so much time, you know, and for us to walk away, like, you know, and now I'm going to be feeling, I said, if you wasted that much emotion, don't waste anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's a choice. You got something to do. You can't waste anymore because now you're just wasting it for no reason. What's the return? Let me know.
What is the ROI
Let
of
me
this,
know the ROI
waste
on
of
this
emotion?
Let me know.
Wow.
And when I sat and I really processed that, I was like, if you keep talking about all the things that you went through, you can never actually walk and live in the fulfilling life that God has for you. Oof. So you really have to know it's a choice to wake up and keep going.
Yes, it is.
And like that just hit me the other day when I told her, I was like, man, it's a choice for me to wake up and choose to not react to certain things that we should react to in the world. Yeah. But I'm like, because there's a mandate on your life, the enemy wants you to spend your energy reacting in emotions.
Wow.
He wants you to spend another 16 years still stuck. Because after 16, now you're at 32. So you must make a choice to make a difference. And that's actually my book, is Choosing Your Tomorrow. You know, what it looks like to make wise choices and to be postured in a place of discernment, to have the wisdom to be able to walk in whatever it is that God is calling you to walk in.
My goodness.
So don't waste any more time. Pick up your cross and carry it. And do it confidently, knowing that God has already went before you and created the plan. And the last piece I wanted to tell you is the light. God gave me revelation on that a couple weeks ago. Light is a reflection. It has to bounce off of darkness for light to reflect. But what people miss is the darkness that it has to hit for the light to shine.
That's good.
And you can Google this. Look up how light actually forms, and it will tell you that light is a reflection. So in order for the light to shine, it must be able to reflect off of the darkness. But when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, what's reflecting shouldn't be who you think you are, but who God called you to be. So that you can actually be a representation of the light. Don't represent your darkness. Represent the light of who God has called you to become. And I had to separate that last week because we're always like, oh, that's just who I am. You know, this is just who I am. Huh? Who are you? Because honestly, we don't even know who we are.
Yeah.
But what we posture ourselves in is who we're called to become. If you can understand who God is calling you to become, the light that you bring off will be in alignment with who God has already ordained you to be.
Man.
We're never going to be good enough in our own minds.
Nope.
But if we're willing to walk in it every day, we will still establish everything that it is that he has for us and more. Our problem in the world is execution. We have the strategy, we have the visions, we have the plans, we can put it on tablets, we can put it on every single thing. But people are so scared to execute because of fear of the unknown. Because faith is assurance. It's confidence. And I wrote in my book too, you know, 1 out of every 4 people in the world struggle with insecurities. We can't even have confidence in ourselves. So why do you think that someone would have confidence in something they can't see? And the greatest commands, I mean, everything is a representation of Christ. But if you don't know your Father, how do you know who you are and who you're called to become?
Yeah.
You got to know your Father.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is not through religious practices and not just showing up to church on Sunday. This is a relationship building, intentional building. It goes right back into building business.
Yeah.
You must marry God first. What does it look like when you're dating? You're vetting. Okay, God, who are you? Let me look at the track record of the consistency of how great you've been. Because I always say there's revelation and reflection. When you reflect on the things that God has already brought you through, it reveals his power and his truth.
That's so good.
So.
My goodness. No, this is... I'm off my notes at this point. No, this is... And like, I think... So I can hear someone listening. All right, so when are we going to start talking about business stuff and business tactics? But it's like, no, like half the time, at least from my experience, business is a mental game.
Yeah.
Most of the time, your battle is between these 2 ears. Because you can have all the right strategy in the world, go to as many conferences. You know how many conference junkies I know too? They've been to every conference. Haven't done nothing.
Still ain't did nothing.
Ain't done nothing. All the books, they know everything from Jim Rohn to John Maxwell.
Yeah.
Ain't done a single thing with it. Like they are like, man, you're a student, but you're not even and it's like, okay, what's the disconnect? This.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I don't think we even talk about enough how there are things from your past. There are things that, as you mentioned, of like wasted time, right? There's a time for mourning.
Yeah.
And it's necessary.
Yeah.
Because it says, weeping may endure for a night, joy comes in the morning. I think there are times.
Yeah.
Now, night doesn't necessarily have like a certain connotation of how long that is, right? But I think there's sometimes we prolong it where it's like, okay, this is not even because and when we were talking, it made me think of this verse. If you all know me, I'm gonna pull out this book, Psalms 126, which I love. It says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy." So, biblically, tears are seeds. But I think sometimes we can waste tears or waste the season of mourning where it's like, hold on, you're mourning something that's like been like that God's trying to redeem into joy.
Yeah.
Like, yes, have the time for mourning.
Yeah.
He's not trying to have it stay here. And when we can get a grasp on that and allow God to renew our minds, I have found for myself, when I do that work and I do that work, when I've done that work with the Lord, it's given me the courage to like, all right, let me step. Because before I got doing Faithustle, I was, man, so insecure. Had all these different, nobody wants to hear my voice. Like all this different stuff. Thank God for wise counsel and godly people who had encouraged the gift of God in me. Thank God for 2 men that sought Hunter, Kyle and man, I can't think of my other brother right now. That they encourage Henry and Kyle. They encourage me, and they're like, "Bro, God put this in your heart.
Yeah.
Like, you have what it takes. See it through."
Yeah.
But the real moment that I was like, okay, I was at the Upper Room Conference 2023.
Yeah.
Holy Spirit spoke a few words to me. One, he told me, you'll never get a higher title than son. So you're never going to like arrive or get somewhere that's going to get you to make
accolades,
beyond being a son.
Yeah.
But the second thing I felt like, he was like, I'm giving you the green light. Like I am putting my seal in my hand, like, go.
Yeah.
And it just, this courage just rose up in me of like, I still was uncertain how it was going to happen, but I have felt the courage enough to like take a next step. I say all that to say this really matters because I have personally seen this trip a lot of people up. Yeah. And I'm talking about a lot of people who have great potential, good ideas. Yeah. It's not enough. Yeah. Like, it will get you close enough, and then where courage and faith is needed for the rest of the journey, that's where these replays of condemnation, shame, guilt, all these different traumas and stuff come, and they block you from getting from here to there. Yeah. So everything you're saying right now is so critical because, again, I know several people right now. I'm thinking of them right now as we're doing this. I'm like, they need to hear this. Yeah. Because this is actually like, they think they have a strategy problem. They don't. Yeah.
It's an execution.
Yeah.
And I think what you said too, you know, people will listen and be like, oh, let's get into business. This is business. This is talking about the foundation. Yeah. Because if the foundation isn't firm, you can't build even a house on an unsolid foundation. It won't stand. You know, so if the foundation is not firm, you cannot build something that will be sustainable and be able to build and grow the kingdom in the way that it's supposed to. So when we talk about the mind, because I'm big on the mind, I always say it as a tree. I say, this is where your fruit grows. This is your bushes, but your roots are in your heart. And that's why God gives us certain commands like guarding our hearts.
Because it's the roots.
Because this is where your root is planted. So the reason why we have impure thoughts and the reason why we have thoughts that are not in alignment with what we can and what we will do is because our heart is unhealed. We're still worried about mommy who told you couldn't do it back in the day. We're still worried about the daddy who didn't show up. We're still worried about, you know, the parents who built a legacy that you didn't want to be a part of, and now you're struggling with all of that. You're still dealing with that insecurity in the heart. Yeah. So until the heart is fully postured on God, you can't bear fruit in the mind. Oof. So how do you, and you are a representation, you are your business. Yep. So if you are not fruitful, how could you expect your business to be fruitful? It starts with you. So even when it comes to the business talk, we can get in there. I can talk to you about numbers all day. I could tell you how to become this, that. But this is the thing. My blueprint will not work for you. So for those people out there selling blueprints, they're not real. Save your money. Invest it into yourself. Of course, people
are commenting like, what do you mean it's a framework? It's like, nothing wrong with frameworks. We love frameworks. But yeah, it's like, it's not a copy and paste. That's why we would want it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what may give you anxiety or trigger you is not going to trigger me. So you can tell me how to make $1 million in a year, but maybe you're not going through the fact that someone could be a single mother and trying to do the same blueprint, and you have two different stories.
That is so true.
Because when God gave you a calling, it wasn't a conference call, meaning nobody else around you will understand the mandate on your life. So are you willing to walk with God alone and know that nobody can tell you how to do this? I'm sorry, because even for my ones who want to leech off of others and think that clinging yourself to someone will help you come up, no. It doesn't work, because what God has for you is for you. And until you do the intentional seeking of what God has for you, you will always live in somebody else's life feeling that you're never good enough because you don't know you and what God called you to do. So that's why I believe the foundation is so important to be able to talk when speaking about business.
Yes.
I can talk about success and accolades all day, but that doesn't define the hard work that I had to put in, because at the end of the day, faith without works is dead.
Yes, it is.
I read my word, but I did the work to make sure that I keep my mind where it needs to be persistent daily. And I had a really wise woman tell me before, she's founder of Above All Things nonprofit. She told me one day, set your face like a flint. And that's scripture. And I'm like, set my face like a flint. And it's like, set your face in a place of perseverance that nothing will shake you or break you. You have to be so postured in the faith of God and the assurance and the confidence of God to know that he will do what he says he will do. He did not bring you this far to only bring you this far. So why are you going to stop? And that's why I think one of the best brands, and the reason why I love the branding, is just the name itself. Just do it.
Yeah.
Nike. Biggest brand in the world.
Yeah.
People put on the clothes and not doing it. They wearing it and not doing it.
This is a great idea.
Put on your running shoes and go run. This is not a fashion statement. This is not an aesthetic. This is a walk.
Yeah.
And they designed the shoes for you to walk in, so walk in it. Just like God did for you. Nike literally gave you the play. He didn't say just do it when you feel like it. Nike said just do it. And that's what God, I believe, is saying in everything. And he says just do it and just carry me with you, and you could do all things. As long as you take me with you. If you try to do it alone, you will fall. I tried multiple times trying to do it alone. And I've fallen every time. But when I take God with me and I carry and I pick up that cross daily, he shows me the power and the authority that is within us to crush those scorpions and snakes that will come against us. Why? Because the promise at the end of this, nothing will harm us.
Nothing will harm us.
He said nothing. Not our mental health, not our insecurities, our doubt, our lack of, where we feel like we're falling short, where we don't think we're good enough for the calling. When I got ordained, I'm like, me? The girl who used to trap and like do all this other stuff back in the day, me? And he said, don't forget to look at the fruit of the people that I use in the Bible, just like Saul turned to Paul. And he said, if I could use them, I'll use anybody out here. So please get out of your own way and quit self-sabotaging.
Oof.
So daily, pray against self-sabotaging thoughts.
That is real.
And pray that you will stay rooted in your identity that is rooted in Christ alone.
Man.
Not in social media, not in what your best friends are doing or what the people are doing around you, not in your job, not in your career, not even in purpose.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is people don't understand purpose. They're on this pursuit for purpose, but all they have to do is be in a pursuit for Christ, and they'll define their purpose. Because our only purpose in this world is to make more disciples and to follow Christ daily. That's our only purpose. It's to follow Christ daily. But if you don't know what that looks like, you will always be like a hamster in a hamster wheel trying to define what your purpose looks like.
Man. I don't think I need to say anything else. I almost took off my shoe. And I'm wearing Nikes. I'm about to throw this Nike shoe at you.
No, we're not going to take off the shoe. We're going to start running around and just do it.
Exactly.
That's what we're going to do.
I'm going to just do it today. No, that's so... There's so many things that I can go into. I think the only thing I might even add, I'm struggle to even try to add anything to that. Yeah. I've been reading, and actually my pastor, he wrote a book based off of Judges 6 of Gideon's story. Yeah. And it was a time where God's people, like always in Old Testament, they were running their mouth and they were serving these idols and just acting foolish. And he's like, all right, I'm going to let them take over. I'm going to let these enemies take over. So the Midianites were taking over. They were destroying their crops, all this different stuff. So Gideon is hiding and like literally is, like trying to hide the crops. And like he's in a place of like he's literally hiding. And God finds him in his hiding and his insecurity and his fear. And he tells him, God is with you, mighty man of valor. Like speaks the opposite. And like there's like 2 or 3 times where like Gideon tried to get out of it. Like, oh, no. One, he was like, where were you? Yeah. I said, hold on, I'm gonna pull it up. Because this thing, when I tell you this thing blessed me, we just having a little Bible study on Faithustle today. Y'all gonna get this Bible.
We are walking Bible studies.
No, but it said, okay. angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." Gideon's response, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all of this happened to us? Where has all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, did not the Lord bring us from Egypt?" So he's basically saying, you gave, like, you left us, all this different stuff. God's response was, "Go in this might of yours, save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do I not send you?" Basically, every time he tried to come with, and then he made another excuse, right? So everything we're talking about, self-sabotage, excuse, self-sabotage, excuse.
Yeah.
Man, you weren't here, there. You see all these problems that we're having. And then he goes into, man, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I'm the least in my father's house. So my people are the weakest. Yeah. And I'm the weakest of the weak. Yeah. And he said, if now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign. This is who speaks to you. Yeah. And then so the Lord shows him a sign and all this different stuff. Basically, all I'm saying is, like, God chose to use Gideon, exactly what you said. And through, I think, the sovereignty of God helped him to get past self-sabotage. Get him past getting out of his own way to save his own people. Yeah. And, you know, like, he had to do it several times. Yeah. And it reading Gideon encourages me that, all right, I'm not crazy sometimes with my thoughts. Like, I'm this is normal to think this way. Yeah. But it's not okay to stay this way. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Like, that makes you human. But you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay in a place of being in fear, stuck, of, like, man, not only what people are gonna say, but, like, I don't think I can do this. All these different, I don't have what it takes. Yeah. Again, there's nothing wrong with you of those thoughts, as far as that it's a normal experience. It's not okay for you to stay there, because God does call you out in the middle of hiding. Yeah. And says, God is with you. Like, his answer to his insecurity is, God is with you. Yeah. He actually didn't pander to his flesh. Yeah.
There was just so much in that scripture of words that were used, that he used specifically to say man of valor.
Yeah. He called him.
He said mighty. He said might. You know? And that just shows you the power is in you. And that's what I believe in a lot of believers. They don't know the power within them. Because we have a lot of churchgoers, but we don't have a lot of power throwers. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of lukewarm believers who don't know the power and authority of Christ. That's why we're not creating miracles and producing signs and wonders the way that God ordained it to be, because we don't know the power. Why? We don't understand God's love. And that entire scripture just shows God's love for us. Yeah. You know, but it also showed us how he uses our weaknesses. He says that his strength is made perfect
in our weakness.
In our weakness. So we must first be vulnerable. That's why I always say that love is vulnerability. The more that you're willing to be honest and vulnerable with yourself, the more willing it is for you to understand love and be able to receive love in that capacity. Yeah. And for anyone that's building a business, going out, building ministry, building whatever it is that God's calling them to build, even your household, you know, you must understand the love that God has for you. Yes. And to know that even in your weaknesses, as long as you just seek him, it's okay. Because even when you doubt, God doesn't get mad at you for doubting. So if there's questions that you may have about God and things like that, you must find trusted, wise counsel who won't beat you up for doubting, but will pick you up and bring you closer to Jesus' feet in those moments. Yeah. Because we are human. We were born into sin. So trial and tribulation is inevitable. We can't run from it. Yeah. But if we can posture ourselves to know the promises of God, that he will withstand the storm and he will make sure that we do not perish. Yeah. We can withstand anything, and we can do it confidently and go about it with grace. Yeah. I think that was the most important thing I had to learn in my season with walking into who God called me to become, was having grace with who Tiff was. When I finally learned grace with me is when I started to accept what God was doing in me.
That's good.
It wasn't accepting the flaws about me, Because I'm not good. I talk about this all the time on podcasts. I don't do the unapologetically me mindset. Why? Because you must apologize if you're wrong.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm unapologetically me. No.
So
I don't
anti-Bible.
care if you Christian or anything like that. Like, you're not because people of God apologize in correction.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to be willing to humble ourselves in those places.
Absolutely.
So I think just, the story of Gideon, when we think of faith moving mountains, right? When you think of a mountain moving, I mean, just tell me, when you think of a mountain moving, what does that look like to you?
I mean, practically, it's, I don't know, like literally just like inching forward. It's like, yeah.
So that's a slow process.
Yeah.
Me, I'm about to send an earthquake.
Okay, all right now.
Okay, if a mountain's gonna move, we gotta shake it up a little bit.
Come on.
So when you understand that faith takes a little bit of shaking, you gotta be willing to do the shaking and the breaking so that your faith can be operated in it to move that mountain.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. That doesn't mean that you have to go to be this prayer warrior that's just over here speaking in tongues and going in and you just have it all together. No. Faith the size of a mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
So for my business owners, for anybody who could be listening in any capacity, all you need is, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how to execute on what you've given me, but I surrender and I submit to your will and get out of my own way to establish every assignment that you trust me with. Because it is a privilege to be able to go to war for God.
That's so good.
And, when people used to be, don't put me on the toughest soldiers list, don't put me on the list this year. I'm like, Lord, sign me up. Why?
On.
Because I have the Ephesians 6 armor on me. So if my armor is on me, I'm not worried about it.
Okay, let's
Put me in.
I'll take all the smoke.
I'll take the smoke. I'm not worried. And anybody who knows me knows that.
I love that.
What it looks like to be sacrificial and truly put on your armor to go out and fight the good fight.
I love it.
You shouldn't be scared to be God's toughest soldier. You should be honored.
Yeah.
That he's trusted you with this business. He's trusted you with this seed to produce something that will be able to produce productivity within the kingdom.
My goodness.
But we've got to reframe our thinking on productivity as well. Like we were talking about before we went live on rest.
Yeah.
That's production.
Yes, it is.
Because in that rest is where revelation is able to be downloaded within you to know exactly what needs to maybe be fine-tuned a little bit more to prepare you for where you're called to go. But it takes intentionality and it takes choices. It's a choice to wake up and choose God today.
Man, this was so good. Like, we're out of time, but I'm like, dang, this went fast. Oh my gosh, so much wisdom. Thank you. I know this is going. I got 10 people in my mind I'm sending this to. I like right now.
Amen.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your wisdom. What as we close, what's some things you're working on that you're just excited about, of like what's coming up the pipeline for you and your 20 businesses and all this stuff you got going on?
I want to create disruption in the marketplace. So in any area of my life where you will see is some disruption, I'm ready to disrupt spirits. I'm ready to cast things out, deliver people from things so that we can walk in who God has created us to be. So, of course, whether that's through the nonprofit, with the charitable initiatives that we do every month, we'll have our back to school bash, and we have so many different ways that we touch the children, the men and the women in the community, but also just being able to continue to use my voice. When I really think about it, using my voice in everything that I do, from the nonprofit to the real estate world to the business world and everything like that. With Taste of Gaia, the reason why I even had Taste of Gaia and I'm repurposing that business, that's another thing. If you may be questioning, God, is this even the business that I'm supposed to be in? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Maybe it's another thing like, God, is this the way that you wanted me to build it? Because sometimes you just have to repurpose what it is that you have.
Yeah, and just context, Taste of Gaia is a juice
bar, health and wellness bar.
Juice bar.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes.
Yeah.
So God told me something else to where I can now make it franchisable, but franchisable isn't because of the return on the back end, which he will give you a return if you walk in his will. But it's because now I can sow the seed everywhere. So now you're giving something everywhere that God will always be at the forefront of the foundation of that marketplace. So I'll be doing that. Real estate, of course, just pouring into the people in any capacity that I can. I am just so enthused with impact and real influence, not just being a Instagram or social media influencer, but making sure that people can see the light of God through me in everything that I produce and put out there.
I love it.
That's all I care about. Is as long as I can be a blessing to at least one person daily, I know I'm closer to exactly where God called me to be.
That is so good. Thank you. Thank you for being on. I'll put all of her information below for y'all to connect with her, but this was a treat. I knew how we both flow. I was like, honestly, we could go so many directions today. We'll figure it out. But I think there was, like I said before, I felt like it wasn't just going to be a teaching or, just a lot of valuable information that was going to be like an impartation. So I believe you imparted something in this community. So
I got one quote I want to leave them with, if that's okay with you.
Drop it.
Persistence and contentment, not perfection and complacent. So let me just break it down really for you. Persistent. People will tell you that the key to success is consistency. I'd counter that and say it's persistence. Why? Because persistence is consistency with trial and tribulation present. So you must be willing to persevere despite and remain consistent despite what comes your way. But you must be content with what it is that you're producing and know that it's more than enough. Versus seeking so much of perfection that you don't release the product because it's not perfect enough, so you become complacent. So persistent and content, not perfection and complacent, and you can be able to establish the will of God.
Enough said. There it is. Thank you. Thank you for being on. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Faith Hustle podcast. We hope you felt challenged, encouraged, and equipped to walk out your faith hustle. And if you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on YouTube or any audio platform. As well, leave us a review. It helps us so much in our ratings so we can get the word out to more people. Each week we have these conversations with business owners who build their business God's way. And so we look forward to growing with you on your faith hustle journey. We'll see you next time.